He can make a way. Hey, hey. So humble yourselves and pray and guard His Torah. Obey each day. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hoshiana. Hoshiana. Hallelujah.
And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way. When you lie down and when you rise up, you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. It's a pleasure to be here today on Yahweh's Sabbath, on His set-apart day. I'm not going to tell you the name of the message yet. I'm going to tell you about the name of the message. Whether you've seen it or not, most of us are familiar with a musical that came out back in the 1980s called Les Misérables. It was based on an 1862 novel by a gentleman named Victor Hugo by the same name. Les Misérables. Now, it is plural, and it literally means in French, the miserables. We would translate it something like the miserable ones, or the miserable people, or something like that. But neither the novel nor the play is what this message is about. No, as a matter of fact, I'm actually only going to be borrowing from the name. So have you seen this before? Les Misérables. But I won't even be pronouncing it that way, but rather, I'm going to say it this way. Les Miserables. Les Miserables. Do you have things in your life that cause you misery? Oh, yeah. Then you have things to a greater or lesser degree that makes you miserable. All right? The things that cause you to be miserable are what we will refer to today as miserables. Miserables. Now, if you want to have less misery, it only makes sense that you would need to have less in your life that makes you miserable. Amen? You need less miserables. And that is what this message is about. Now, once upon a time, that's how you know I'm going to start telling a story. Once upon a time, several years ago, the grandchildren had come to stay for a few days. And my grandson was 7 years old at the time. I decided on this last day that it would be a great idea to go down to the stream and hunt for crawdads. Now, for you folks who may not be blessed sufficiently to have been raised in the South, that's what many of the folks from the Southern Kingdom call crayfish. Crawdads. It's a small freshwater lobster that can be found dwelling underneath little flat rocks in the shallows of streams and creeks. Now, catching crawdads is great entertainment for young boys. It's more fun than catching lightning bugs. Now, for you folks not blessed sufficiently to have been raised in the South, that's what us folks from the Southern Kingdom call fireflies. Lightning bugs. Catching lightning bugs is fun, but catching crawdads adds an element of adventure. It offers welcome challenges for young boys. Challenges that require him to answer the call of his hunter instincts and hone his skill at pursuing a prey in its own wilderness. To track with stealth. To trap. Observe the animal in its own environment. And then see it up close as you examine it through a glass jar. Plus, on top of that, you get to get wet. Now, this would surely be a grand finale to a visit to me Mom and Poppy's. Now, we had talked about this for several times during his stay, and the end of his visit was nigh upon us. I decided to take him down to the creek that flows from the dam at the bottom of the mountain where we lived. It was nearby, and I thought sure to be a great crawdad hunting ground. He was sure to have a good time in this outing. For starters, since we were going so deeply into the woods, Poppy brought his .22 rifle along, just in case we found ourselves in a situation where we would need to protect ourselves. That always heightens the sense of adventure for a youngster. We talked about coyotes and bears and wild dogs and how to handle each situation differently. I had hoped to get an opportunity to see some deer or some other wild animal to share with him, but I didn't hold out much hope. You see, Yahweh said to Noah in Genesis 9:2, I'll just read you one verse here, you don't have to turn. It says, "And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the heavens, on all that creeps, on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given." You see, deer have ears, and boys make noise. Right? They have many ways of making their presence known in the woods. Nevertheless, off we went. I will tell at the onset, this was indeed a great adventure, and it went along like this. We parked. We got our jars and our rifle, and we started on our way. As we walked along beneath the dam, my grandson said, "Wow, Poppy, that's the biggest poke salad I've ever seen in my life." In the first place, I was impressed that the kid knew what poke salad was. And next, I was impressed at his powers of observation, because it hadn't even occurred to me that this stuff really was around 10 feet high. And it grew more like a hedge than a stalk. And I'm sure that it was the tallest poke salad that Poppy had ever seen too. This, I was thinking, is already getting off to a great start. We had to walk carefully down the side of the mountain where the dam was installed. The mountainside was slippery. It was covered with fallen leaves, and earth beneath the leaves fell away very easily from the rock underneath on which it rested. Down we went, reaching for every nearby small tree and limb to steady our descent, rappelling, if you will, swinging from tree to tree, like two monkeys that had not mastered the art of picking our feet up off the ground yet. But we were mountain climbing. Oh, man, we were mountain climbing. And as little boys are prone to do, he quickly made his way to the lead so as to prove that he had all this under control. The older, more experienced chimp says things like, "You need to slow down. You need to be careful," things like that. But this is natural for little boys, and it's part of how they learn to be leaders. This is also frequently the exact moment when humility takes advantage of youthful zeal and inexperience. And I don't know how the little mountain climber lost his footing, but it's hard to look like the leader when your feet are in the air and your rear is on the ground and you just can't make it stop. But stop, he finally did. And in the style of a selfless leader, while he was bringing himself to his feet, he said, "Are you okay, Poppy?" "I'm fine. Are you okay?" "Yes, sir." "You need to slow down." I said that a lot that day. But we were now at the bottom of the hill where the stream flowed from the dam. And what I failed to mention a little earlier was that we were actually in the middle of a pretty severe drought that year. That's one of the reasons why I decided to try below the dam. Hopefully there'd be enough water there and it'd be sufficient to support a crawdad population. I looked and I saw a lush, marshy looking area with thick succulent leaves that were growing there and cattails everywhere. I said, "Come over here, buddy." What we found was not what I had hoped for. The stream was rather pathetic. It wasn't flowing. It was more like it was drooling. More like it was just drooling. But we found it. And we checked things there a bit and then decided to move downstream. You don't hunt for crawdads in a swamp, after all. "Look, Poppy, some bones." No, they weren't human bones. But they did add to the adventure. After all, bones are hard evidence that we are not alone in the woods. We walked over, being careful not to come too close or too near, and tried to figure out what it was. And then after a while, when we decided we really didn't know, we moved on. And we started down the side of the stream bed. We soon realized that we were not alone. Spiders live here too. And they had hung webs all across the path in an effort to discourage intruders. That would not deter these two great adventurers on their crawdad quest. We simply resorted to hand-to-hand combat by employing the aid of spider sticks. Held out properly in front of the explorer's path, the spider stronghold is no match for the young swordman's skills. Neither are any of the other invisible villains that one might fight. Fraught with fear, these invisible villains, in the face of each placement of our champion's razor-sharp sword. With surgical precision, they fell to the left and to the right. You need to slow down. You need to slow down or else you're going to have another episode like you did when you fell down the mountain. We continued down the meager little stream. The problem, aside from the lack of flowing water, was there were no rocks to speak of either. Only sandy, gravelly pebbles. But never mind, we were sure to be in for some great crawdad hunting grounds just downstream. Well, next we found where the stream got wide. Though it was only a few inches deep, we could see small little fish darting all around. Of course we wondered, where do they go when they get bigger? You ever wondered that? Where do these little fish go? We never came up. Did you ever come up with a good answer? We didn't either. After a while, the call of the crawdad was too loud. On we went. Further along, we came to a place where the stream split. And we found this deep hole which the stream was running into. It was about the size of a garden-style bathtub. Pretty good sized hole out there just in the middle of the woods. And naturally, we wondered, well, just how deep is it? There's only one way to find out in a situation like this. We would have to plunge something deep into the heart of the beast. Quick, let's stick that long branch down in there. Okay, Poppy, slow down. We threw it in and it went out of sight. We need to get something bigger. You need to be careful. I don't want to have to jump in there and get you out. Besides, we don't know what lives down in there in that hole. That helped. So we found a fallen tree and dropped it down in the hole. It was about 8 feet deep. Pretty impressive for a drooling stream. And as we went along, I saw something moving up ahead. I said, what is that? I thought it was a rodent of some sort. But as we got closer, we discovered it was a turtle. And he was really moving fast. For a turtle, that is. Little boys really like turtles. This one was really cool. Its markings were bright orange like a traffic vest. Never had seen that before. We talked about how awesome Yahweh's imagination is to come up with things like this. And like I said, I'd never seen one that way before either. We actually had an occasion that day to find 3 turtles, one orange, one yellow, and one red. Soon we found ourselves having to crouch low and walk on all fours as we went through the woods, as the deer trail that we were following took us through some very dense thicket. The thicket through which we crawled was on the very steep ledge which rose about 30 to 40 feet high. And it went right down, just like this. We wondered how the buck deer could go through this thicket without hanging his antlers. It was very tight. But this was a place where you really did need to watch your step, else you would have a really bad day. And I didn't have to tell him to slow down here. We finally got back down to the stream where we had to perform feats of daring as we walked back and forth across fallen trees. It's in places like this that our young heroes will typically forego the usual 1 foot in front of the other mode of locomotion in order to demonstrate their superhuman abilities. To throw caution to the wind and to fearlessly fly from fallen tree across the great chasm below. You ever done that, Seth? Yes, you have. And to touch down with acrobatic skill on terra firma, filled with a sense of great accomplishment, worthy of adoration. He fell in the creek a few times. As we went along, Yahweh blessed us with close-up observation of some sort of water bird. I don't know what it was. It had a round, fat body like a cantaloupe, shaped like that. It had a bill like a heron or an egret, and a slender neck like that, but the neck's length was more like the length of a duck instead of an egret. He was quite an odd-looking bird. He was probably only 40 feet away from us, and he never flew away. He would fly down into the shallow pool. He would catch a fish and then back up on his perch. And he didn't seem to be troubled by our presence. You could not be in the woods that day and not be aware of our presence. But he just kept hanging around. We watched him jumping around in the branches for a long time. And we were really having a good time. Poppy, we need to catch some crawdads. We went a little further downstream and I found some very shallow place with a couple of stones. And we moved them. Perhaps they might have housed, in winter times, our quarry. But today, it was just too shallow. Buddy, I'm afraid we're not going to catch any crawdads today. It's just too dry, and there aren't enough rocks. It was right then, at that very moment, that the adventure ended. This great look of despair came over the face of our champion. But I wanted to catch some crawdads. I did too, buddy, but I just don't think it's going to work out today. Yahweh must have known that it wouldn't be good crawdad hunting today, so he gave us all this other fun stuff to do. I sure am glad that we got to do all this other stuff, aren't you? But we didn't catch any crawdads. What about all the other cool things that we did? But we didn't catch any crawdads. Well, come on, let's keep looking. Maybe Yahweh's got some stuff to show us, or maybe we will find some crawdads. We continued on, and then all of a sudden we came to this small clearing right in the middle of the woods. Surely somebody did this a long time ago, I thought. Hey, buddy, look, there's a deer stand. It stood about 50 feet up in the air. It had been made with old power poles. It looked like a fort, and both of us wanted to climb up inside and take a look around. But it was in too much disrepair, and we could only consider what might have been and what might have been seen. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, but I wanted to catch some crawdads. Next, around the edge of the clearing, there was something that sort of looked like paper all over the ground, but it wasn't paper. Hey, buddy, look. Look at these birch trees. You don't see these everywhere. You can write on the bark like paper. Feel of it. You feel that? It feels like paper, doesn't it? That's pretty neat, huh? Yeah, but I wanted to catch some crawdads. Here, put some of this in your jar and we'll show it to your mommy when we get back. She'll think it's really cool, won't she? Yeah, but I wanted to catch some crawdads. I know, buddy, but it just doesn't look like it's going to work out. But we still had a good time, didn't we? But we didn't catch any crawdads. Maybe we'll catch some next time when the stream fills back up. But we didn't catch any crawdads. Y'all think I'm pulling your leg? It went just like this. Yeah, but what about all the really cool stuff that Yahweh made happen for us? But we didn't catch any crawdads. But we did have a great adventure, didn't we? But we didn't catch any crawdads. And we got to see poke salad like you've never seen before, but we didn't catch any crawdads. And we found those bones, but we didn't see any crawdads. And we knocked down the spider's web, but we didn't catch any crawdads. And we found that deep hole, but we didn't catch any crawdads. And we watched the fish, but we didn't catch any crawdads. We climbed over trees and crawled through the deer trail, but we didn't catch any crawdads. I know, buddy. I wanted to catch crawdads too. That's why I suggested this. But at least we got to do all that other cool stuff. Wasn't that fun? What do you think? I wanted to catch crawdads. How about all the fun we had? Because, you see, the kid really was having a great time. He'd been having a really great time, nothing but fun all day long. How many walks through the woods have you ever taken where the only thing that you really got was some fresh air? Right? Yet this trip resulted in surprise after surprise after surprise. As you may be able to tell, it was quite memorable for me. But no matter how hard I tried to get him to see the wonder of the day and how Yahweh had a hand in it, he would not relent. He kept on. We just didn't catch any crawdads. When the time came to start back to the car, guess what he said? But we didn't catch any crawdads. It took nearly as long to get out of the woods as it took to get in. And as a matter of fact, on the way out, we found those other two turtles that I told you about. We also saw deer rubs and other really cool things to look at. But the bloom had fallen off of the rose, and so lamentations were sung all the way home. Do you know the name of that lamentation? I sure wanted to catch some crawdads. Well, maybe we'll catch some next time. But you can tell Meemaw about all the cool things that we did today. But we didn't catch any crawdads. I was really starting to get annoyed with this little fellow's inability or unwillingness to take note of all the blessings with which we had been so richly blessed. Now, this child was a very sweet and personable little boy. Amen. He is not a spoiled brat. He's a young man now. But he was not a spoiled brat. But why would I need to offer that little disclaimer about his character? Because if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, all right, he is not a spoiled brat. But he was definitely insisting on staying stuck in the problem rather than staying stuck in the solution. And what was his problem? The smiley face that I'd been trying to put on his little disappointment was starting to turn upside down. See, I was reminded of Yaakov when the boys told him that Yosef had been torn apart by a wild beast. The scripture said that he would not be comforted. And that is exactly what I was dealing with. Someone who would not be comforted over crawdads. And I was beginning to get annoyed. Do you know what his real problem was? He had too many miserables. He had too many miserables. Even if it was only one too many miserable. And because he would only focus on the one miserable thing, it was robbing him of all of his joy that he could have and should have been experiencing otherwise. No matter how much I tried to persuade him, he would not be comforted. Is it not just as clear as glass that he was robbing himself of the joy that he could have been having? Sure it is. Now, he was 7 years old. And we expect children to handle things as children. Amen? Isn't that right, children of Israel? Ah, there it came. But you can relate to his plight. All right. Do you ever become overwhelmed where it becomes difficult to enjoy the blessings all around? Yeah. If you're like me at all, then the answer is most certainly yes. Does that make us look like spoiled brats? When we focus instead on what we have not rather than all of the things and the blessings that we have. All right, thankfully there is a solution. But as with most things, it oftentimes takes a little work on our part. What we need to do is have less miserables in our lives. That's right. But this frequently means taking the initiative to focus on our blessings and stop focusing on the missing crawdads in our lives. All right. Now, I'm not talking about real misery. I'm not. Because real misery does come along. One verse, Matthew 6:34, Yeshua says, "Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself." So Yeshua even recognizes, there's bad stuff that's going to come along. Right? There are real problems in life. I'm talking about the things that we choose to feel deprived of while sitting in the midst of the blessings. Crawdads are of no real value to the average Torah keeper, all right? Beyond entertainment, that is. Do you know what else is of little or no value to the average Torah keeper beyond entertainment, that is? Doodads. Doodads. And you know what? It seems that we can really get bummed out over the missing doodads in our lives. Crawdads and doodads. All right? Yahweh does not want us focusing on all of the things that we don't have, especially while sitting in the midst of great blessings. So we're going to turn to Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. This is the chapter of the blessings and the curses. And note well the blessings. "And it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard to do all his commands which I commanded you today, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Blessed are you in the city, and blessed are you in the field. Blessed is the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your livestock, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flocks. Blessed is your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed are you when you come in, and blessed are you when you go out. Yahweh causes your enemies who rise against you to be smitten before your face. They come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. Yahweh commands the blessings on you in your storehouses and in all to which you set your hand, and shall bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Yahweh does establish you as a set-apart people to himself, as he has sworn to you, if you guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and walk in his way. And all the people of the earth shall see that the name of Yahweh is called upon you, and they shall be afraid of you. And Yahweh shall make you to have plenty of what is good in the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your livestock, and in the fruit of your ground, in the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers to give you. Yahweh opens to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many nations, but you do not borrow. And Yahweh shall make you the head and not the tail, and you shall be only on top and not be beneath, if you obey the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, which I command you today to guard and do. And do not turn aside from any of the words which I am commanding you today, right or left, to go after other mighty ones to serve them. And it shall be, if you do not obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard to do all his commands and his laws, which I command you today, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Now, we're going to look at the curses, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time, there's going to be one little thing in the curses that Yahweh is going to make a point about that was going on when you were getting blessed. All right, so we'll point that out when we get to it. Verse 16, cursed are you if you don't keep the commands. Cursed are you in the city, and cursed are you in the field. Cursed is your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed is the fruit of your body and the fruit of your land, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flocks. Cursed are you when you come in, and cursed are you when you go out. That's got to be a terrible feeling. It doesn't matter where I go and what I do, I'm cursed. Yahweh sends on you the curse, the confusion, and the rebuke, and all that you set your hand to do, until you are destroyed and until you perish quickly because of the evil of your doings by which you have forsaken me. Yahweh makes the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you are going to possess. Yahweh smites you with wasting disease and with inflammation and with burning and with extreme heat and with the sword and with blight and with mildew. And they shall pursue you until you perish. And your heavens, which are over your head, shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you, iron. Yahweh makes the rain of your land powder and dust. From the heavens it comes down on you until you are destroyed. Yahweh causes you to be defeated before your enemies, and you go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall become a horror to all the reigns of the earth, and your carcass shall be food for all the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth, with no one to frighten them away. Yahweh shall smite you with boils of Mitzrayim, with tumors, with the scab, and with the itch, and from which you are unable to be healed. Yahweh shall smite you with madness and blindness and bewilderment of heart. And you shall be groping at noon as a blind man gropes in darkness, and not prosper in your ways. And you shall be only oppressed and plundered all the days, with no one to save you. You become engaged to a wife, but another man does lie with her. You build a house, but do not dwell in it. You plant a vineyard, but do not use its fruit. Your ox is slaughtered before your eyes, but you do not eat of it. Your donkey is violently taken from before you, and it is not given back to you. Your sheep are given to your enemies, with no one to save them. Your sons and your daughters are given to another people, and your eyes look and fail for them all day long, and your hand powerless. A people whom you have not known eat the fruit of your land and all your labors, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed all the days. And you shall be maddened because of the sight which your eyes see. Can you imagine that right there? I mean, you're maddened because of all the distress. That's like living in a nervous breakdown. You know it? Verse 35, Yahweh smites you in the knees and on the legs with evil boils, of which you are unable to be healed, and from the sole of your feet to the top of your heads. Yahweh brings you and the sovereign whom you set over you to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other mighty ones, wood and stone. Thus you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a mockery among all the peoples to which Yahweh drives you. You take much seed out into the field, but gather little in, for the locust consumes it. You plant vineyards and shall labor, but you neither drink of the wine nor gather, for the worm eats it. You have olive trees in your borders, but do not anoint with oil, for the olives drop off. You bring forth sons and daughters, but they are not with you, for they go into captivity. Locusts possess all your trees and the fruit of your ground. The sojourner who is among you rises higher and higher above you, but you come down lower and lower. He lends to you, but you do not lend to him. He is the head, and you are the tail. And all these curses shall come upon you, and they shall pursue and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh to guard his commands and his laws which he commanded you. Okay, he told you that at the start. And they shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and on your seed forever. Now pay close attention to this. Because you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. Read that again. Now he said above, it was because you did not keep his commands, but he adds here, verse 47, because you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. I think that happens a lot in this land. I mean, because face it, I don't care what you don't have. I don't care what you don't have. We're living in a land of plenty. And you can walk just about anywhere and see grumpy, impatient people who just are not serving Yahweh with joy and gladness. Before I point the finger too far, need to examine ourselves that we are serving Yahweh with joy and gladness for all the plenty. Verse 48. And you shall serve your enemies whom Yahweh sends against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in need of all. That's not all the plenty, is it? And in need of all. And he shall put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Then the curses continue for another 20 verses. Verse 49. Yahweh brings a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose language you shall not understand, a fierce-looking nation, which shows no regard for the elderly, nor show favor to your young. And they shall eat the fruit of your livestock and the fruit of your land until you are destroyed. They leave you no grain, nor new wine, nor oil, nor the increase of your cattle, or the offspring of your flocks, until they have destroyed you. And they shall besiege you at all your gates till your high and fenced walls, in which you are trusting, come down in all your land. And they shall besiege you at all your gates and all your land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you. And you shall eat the fruit of your own body. That's horrible to try to imagine. And you shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons and your daughters, whom Yahweh your Elohim has given you, in the siege and distress in which your enemies distress you. The man among you who is tender and who is very delicate, his eye is evil against his brother, against the wife of his bosom, and against the rest of his children whom he leaves behind, against giving any of them the flesh of his children that he eats. Because it is all that has been left to him in the siege and distress with which your enemy distresses you in all your gates. The tender and delicate woman among you who have not tried to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her delicateness and tenderness, her eye is evil against the husband of her bosom, and against her son, and against her daughter, and against her seed, which comes from between her feet, and her children whom she bears, for she eats them in secret for lack of all, in the siege and distress with which your enemy distresses you in all your gates. If you do not guard to do all the words of this Torah that are written in this book, to fear the esteemed and awesome name of Yahweh your Elohim, then Yahweh shall bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and lasting plagues, and grievous and lasting sicknesses. And he shall bring back on you all the diseases of Mitzrayim, of which you were afraid, and they shall cling to you. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this Torah, Yahweh does bring upon you until you are destroyed. That tells you that there's sicknesses to be had that aren't even mentioned yet. And you shall be left with few men, although you had become as numerous as the stars of the heaven, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. And it shall be that as Yahweh rejoiced over you to do you good and increase you, so Yahweh does rejoice over you to destroy you and lay you waste. That is an ominous and frightening thought, brothers and sisters, that Yahweh would be rejoicing to destroy you. See, the root word of rejoice is joy. And as much as he had joy to do good to you, he will rejoice to destroy you. He's got to be pretty fed up, amen? Verse 63, and it shall be that as he rejoiced over you to do good and increase you, so Yahweh does rejoice over you to destroy you and lay you waste. And you shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess. And Yahweh shall scatter you among all the peoples, from one end of the earth to the other. And there you shall serve other mighty ones, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. And among those nations you are to find no rest, nor have a resting place for the sole of your foot. But there Yahweh shall give you a trembling heart and failing eyes and sorrow of being. And your life shall be hanging in suspense before you, and you shall fear day and night, and not be certain of your life. In the morning you say, oh, that it were evening. And at evening you say, oh, that it were morning, because of the fear of your heart with which you fear, and because of the sight which your eyes see. And Yahweh shall bring you back to Mitzrayim in ships, by a way which I said to you, you are never to see it again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one to buy. Do you remember what it said in verse 47? Because you did not serve Yahweh with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. All this really, really cool stuff happened in my life, but we didn't find any crawdads. It's not just about serving him. It's about serving him with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. That's Torah, ladies and gentlemen. That's Torah. That's not Stan's philosophy. That's Torah. And you shall serve, verse 48 says, and you shall serve your enemies, whom Yahweh sends against you, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and all the needs, and in need of all. And he shall put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you completely. Turn with me to Exodus chapter 20. It might be on page 78. Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. I'm going to start after the end of the sentence there. They put that verse in the middle of the sentence. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing kindness to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. Yahweh is a compassionate El to thousands, to those who love him and guard his commands with joy and gladness of heart. All right? Isaiah chapter 58. YHWH chapter 58. We're going to be on page 458. Isaiah 58, we're going to start reading in verse 6. Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loosen the tight cords of wrongness, to undo the bands of the yoke, to exempt the oppressed, and to break off every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, and cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh. Then your light would break forth like the morning. Your healing spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The esteem of Yahweh would be your rear guard. Then, when you call, Yahweh would answer. When you cry, He would say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger, and the speaking of unrighteousness, if you extend your being to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted being, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness be as noon. Then Yahweh would guide you continually and satisfy your being in drought and strengthen your bones. And you shall be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. And those from among you shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and you would be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. If you do turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my set-apart day, and shall call the Sabbath a delight, the set-apart day of Yahweh esteemed, and shall esteem it, not doing your own ways, not finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words, then you shall delight yourself in Yahweh. And I shall cause you to ride on the heights of the earth and feed you with the inheritance of Jacob your father, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken. Hallelujah. I can tell you, I look forward to Shabbat. Amen. Amen. I think there's probably room that we could have to extending our being to the hungry and helping the clothe the naked and so forth. But when we do take opportunities to do that, that should be a joy to us as well. Amen. Should be a joy as well. It is amazing the things that we can learn from object lessons of life that Yahweh sends our way. If we'll just pay attention. You may think, Yahweh's not doing anything in my life. Pay attention. Pay attention. It's amazing the things that Yahweh sends our way if we'll just pay attention. Just like a little crawdad hunt. You see, what good is a crawdad to a Torah keeper, really? Can't eat it. Carcass is unclean. Can't teach them to do tricks. They can't do any useful work other than that which Yahweh created them to be, which is a scavenger. Now you're unclean for touching it. He did. They can't do any useful work other than what Yahweh created them to be, which is a scavenger or bait. But He can also use not just a crawdad. Hear me now. He can also use not just a crawdad, but the absence of a crawdad as an opportunity to show us how to have more joy in our lives. Serve Him with gladness and rejoice in the blessings. Put things into their proper perspective. Yahweh has a lot more wonderful things in store for us on our journeys than we can imagine. So stop worrying about the crawdads and the doodads. If we will focus on what we are being given rather than what we do not have, then we will have less miserables and more joys. Yevrakeka Yahweh ba'ish bareka ya'er Yahweh panavaleka v'kaneka Yasa Yahweh panavaleka v'asem laka shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you His complete contentment.
Hey, hey, and He can make a way. Hey, hey, so humble yourselves and pray and guard His Torah. Obey each day. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.